Yo, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're coming from. Hope y'all doing well. Welcome, everyone. Dab with the raid. What's going on, everybody? Hope y'all enjoyed Dab's stream. Hope y'all had some fun. What's going on, everybody? Ooh, we got some people in here already. Sheenan with the 8 months. Thank you so much for the 8 months. That's wild. Thank you for being here. The Art of Missy. Hope you had a great B-Day. You're appreciated. Hey, Missy, I appreciate that. Thank you for the 6 months. Bugaboo with the 9 months. Happy Thursday. Bugaboo, hey, thank you. Thank you for being here. And Knox, yeah, with the 7 months. Let's roll. Hey, let's go. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? How was the birthday? The birthday was perfect. It was amazing. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. My wife surprised me with passes to Universal Studios, and so we got to go to Harry Potter World in LA, and so that was pretty ballin'. I'm not gonna lie. Had lunch at the Three Broomsticks. They have this like vegan veggie plate that was like, it was really, I was ready to be like, all right, we're just gonna go, it's gonna be some bad stuff, but no, the food was bomb. Pumpkin juice bomb, like all this stuff, it was great. So we had lunch at the Three Broomsticks. We walked around. I got my wand. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And then there is outside of Universal, there's something called City Walk, and on that it's like just like a bunch of like restaurants and stores, and one of them is called Voodoo Donuts, and they have like really good vegan donuts. So got some vegan donuts. I'm doing good. I'm in LA. Yeah, I didn't have to travel. We're in LA. Sounds like a dream. It was. It was great. It was one of my favorite. I think it was one of my favorite birthdays ever. It was a lot of fun. Just woke up from a power nap. Let's go, Shells. Did you get a sticker like in Disneyland? No. I wore my Hufflepuff shirt and kept the sticker free. That was the fun part. The fun part is like seeing everybody walking around in their different like house clothes and stuff like that. I thought it was pretty fun. The background music triggered me to get up. Let's go. Just got home from work. Time to grind. All right. I see y'all. What's going on, everybody? Cole, thank you for the 4 months. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Oh, we got some bits too. Hold on. I missed some. I'm sorry. I got so excited to talk about Harry Potter World. My Texas Toast, thank you for the 8 months. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Sheenan with the 100 bits. Thank you. On Ad One with the 6 months of Bezos's bucks. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Orasi with the 100 bits. Hope you're feeling better. Hope you're doing all right. BB Tone with the 100 bits. Hey, thank you. Indifferent in the house with the 100 bits. Thank you so much. Bobby Lynn with the 100 bits. Thank you so much, everybody. Last Avatar, I feel that too. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Let's go. Indifferent, I've always wanted to get into Go. I have some folks that I know that are really into it, and it's been something I wanted to get into for a while. Hey, Knox, thank you for the $5. That's going into the buying a startup fund. I gotta figure out how much is in there for right now. But Knox, hey, I appreciate that. But how about that Cole album? I didn't get a chance. I wasn't home all day. I didn't get a chance. So after stream, that's what I'm doing. After stream, that's what I'm doing. How dare you? I wasn't home. I didn't know what I was doing. It was all a surprise. Exactly. No, it's like, you know what? It's like, I know that I'm gonna do it, and I know that I want to give the respect it deserves, right? So I don't want to try and cram it in. I want to be able to sit down, put my good headphones on, have some nice scotch, relax in my nice comfy chair, and absorb it all. But I need that space, So I'm gonna get there. Hopefully today. Hopefully after stream. Alrighty, folks, welcome in here. Hope y'all are doing well. Sounds like that's your homework. I hope so. Yeah, I'll take that as my homework. There you go. What kind of scotch do you like? I'm all over the place. I'm not like a whiskey snob. Like, I don't I don't turn down too much. Right now, I like things that aren't technically scotches. I'm really into hibikis right now, which I've been going through. If I'm gonna do something that's like more normal, I'm basic. I like the French Oak Reserve. It's one of my favorites. Glenlivet. If I'm going like normal, I'm a Macallan 12 type fan. I just finished a thing of Lagavulin 16, so I think I stick to the basics. I don't front. I feel like you get sorted into house when picking systems, programming languages. Yeah, I like that. That's a funny one. Hey, Izzy, I appreciate that. OCC in the house. Thank you for the 300 bits. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, folks, we got a lot to get into. I think most of us are here. I think we're ready to get into it. Dab, thanks for bringing the gang through. We're going to get into it. Tonight, as I promised on Tuesday, is not about going deep into React. It's about answering why you might want to use React. What does it give us? What does it do? And then we're going to look at some examples. We're going to see how those examples help reinforce why we might use React. And then that's where we're going to stop. Right? I feel like people get really deep into React really quickly, and they never stop and smell the roses. So tonight is about stopping, smelling the roses, making sure we understand like what React can benefit us with, how it can help, why it came about, why so many people love it, right? And then we're gonna take some time. We're gonna introduce it. We're gonna look at some bad code, and then we're gonna stop because today is Mental Health Action Day, and so I'm gonna encourage everyone that's here to do something towards that day. So towards Mental Health Action Day. We're gonna talk about that for a second. So we're gonna introduce it. We're going to skim the surface, right? Dab. Skim the surface, talk about why it's important, hopefully have that like, okay, that makes sense, I would use it, and then we're gonna stop. Okay. I got some bad code for y'all to see, some fun stuff for us to pick it apart, hopefully see anything. The egghead tutorial didn't help, definitely not for beginners. That's all right. Tonight we're gonna introduce it. Tuesdays and Thursdays class, we're gonna build. We're gonna see how all the pieces come together. We're gonna answer all the nerdy questions. When people start doing React, they kind of just like stumble off this hill, and I don't want y'all to stumble off the hill. I don't want you getting caught up with like, oh, function components, classes, blah 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 blah. No, we're gonna start with like why React, look at some examples, and then slowly peel off the onion layers here and get down to where we can actually build stuff with React and understand kind of where React went, where it's at now, and feel comfortable with the newer way of doing things, and also see a lot of examples of the older way of doing things, right? But we got to build up to it. And I'm going to build up with older code, see kind of how things developed, and end with like the latest and greatest. Cool. So, got a lot of fun stuff to get into. Let me get a little Leon here. OCC, Brad's perspective at the end of his video. Even if this is your first time with React and this just looks like a horror show to you. Yeah, I feel that way. Onions, oh, there you go, Doken. Onions make us cry, exactly. So we got a big old onion, we got to peel off a lot of layers. But tonight's not about that. Tonight's about understanding like why, what, asking some good questions, and then stopping so that it can marinate in our brain. We can start to view things differently. We can start to think about our projects in terms of components. And so we're gonna have some fun. I love it. Separation concerns is a mindset. If you limit separation concerns to just having HTML in your JS, you're missing the point. Whew, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it. Exactly. All right. Let's jump into it, folks. We got some questions we're gonna walk through. We're going to talk about 100 devs. We're going to talk about Mental Health Action Day. We're going to talk about what is React. We're going to talk about components, props, state, and then we're going to stop, take some action, and you got some homework to get through. Yeah, you get a little dizzy there. It's all right. We're going to get there. All right. I think we answered 40 plus questions at the end of last stream. So I think we're going to jump right into it today. Get right into the thing today. I really want to end with a meaty chunk of time at the end of class that we can do something else. So I'm going to get right into it today. Tomorrow we have our stream team and blog team meeting. So if you're interested in becoming part of the stream team, you're interested in writing something for the 100 Devs blog, definitely join us tomorrow. We're going to be looking through the reveal of the blog. We're talking about kind of the key things that I think we should start off with, maybe get together a little bit of a schedule and start putting some things in the motion here. So hopefully see you tomorrow. Leon, how do you handle frustration while coding? Like break your monitor levels of frustration. I forgive myself and get help. That's it. Sometimes when I'm in deep, I just say, all right, I've banged my head against the keyboard enough. I stop and I get help. And eventually I get that help. I make sure that I never forget that lesson. I make sure it's in my Anki. I make sure that I actively recall after I learned the thing. And I really hold myself to not making the same mistakes twice. That's the biggest thing for me as a developer, is if I had to bang my head against a keyboard and I had to learn something the hard way, I don't want to ever forget it. So I invest a lot of time in not forgetting the things that I have learned. And getting help is the big thing there. All right, we have a backend review class on Sunday. We're gonna be building a simple application from scratches. Basically, I'm gonna give you the template that you can use for all of your backend development projects going forward. And we are going to build something with that template and make sure that you feel good. Is Sunday gonna be a long class? I'm not sure how long it'll go. It basically comes down to how many questions y'all have. I do plan on streaming for the full 3 hours. We probably will go over it since we're building something. So expect Sunday to be a little bit longer. Well, once again, do I get to ask questions? Of course you get to ask questions. Once again, I mentioned on Tuesday, and I really appreciate y'all retweeting and recommending folks. I really appreciate it. But if you identify as Black, Indigenous, a person of color, you're in the Boston area, Philly, or Pittsburgh, and you want to learn to code, our recruitment hackathon for our next Resilient Coders cohort is this Saturday. So if you would like to participate in that program, highly encourage you to sign up, and I'll see you Saturday. Hackathons are always good fun. You meet a lot of great people and get a little bit of a crash course on HTML and CSS, which you all should be ballers at already anyway. But yeah, so if you know someone that you think might be a good fit, let them know as well. Our December cohort, 94% of folks that graduated got full-time offers as software engineers with a starting salary of $92,000. Our next cohort is going to be bigger than we've ever had. We're going to have folks from, like I said, the Boston, the Philly, and Pittsburgh area, and we're growing. Have you heard of CSS Battle? Yeah, I've heard a few of them. There's a couple people that do like the battle format on YouTube and on Twitch too. I'll bring the hard ones. Writing a Babble extension. Ooh. Alrighty. So like I said, this week is we're starting just the basics. Like so many folks, if you're paying attention to chat right now, so many people are saying like, I'm intimidated. The resources are too hard. The things are like, React just seems like this hole. And it just seems like this hole, right? That just never ends. There's so much complexity to it. So we're going to kind of sidestep that tonight. Just talk about why and what. You're going to put more reading in. This is the reading that you're supposed to get done already so far. Remember, we had a clean slate, so you have until Sunday to get all this stuff done. And then Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to go step by step from the beginning, explain stuff in detail, and make sure that you feel good. Reminder that June will be one-on-ones. Remember, I'm going to help you with your resume, your portfolio, your job reach, your interview skills. I'll be your reference and so much more. But for that, you should be checking in every class. You should have submitted your homework by Sunday. You should be doing your networking, at least one coffee chat, and 3 connections every week. If you haven't checked in, you can always do ! check-in. That brings up the Twitter, the tweet. You should be doing your networking. You should be pushing every day. Recruiters love those green squares. This week, you had some more methods to add to your collection. So you should have given a short description of what it does, how it works. If complexity was a thing, you should do it. And 3 examples of it in action. I've been loving seeing your responses to these. They've been really, really good. So make sure that you've completed these for this week. As we saw, I'm giving you the cheat codes, folks. I'm giving you the cheat codes. It's up to you if you want to use the cheat codes or not. But if you do it, you'll be way better off. I made a connection with a hiring manager on LinkedIn over swear words. That's funny. Will there be streams in June? Yes, we're going through June. Mainly my days will be working with y'all one-on-one, but we'll be doing a lot of interview prep work. We'll be doing a lot of kind of data structures and algorithms work. We'll be adding a few more accessory skills to the things that we need to be helpful in the job hunt. We still got some bigger topics after React, a little bit of Postgres, a little bit of testing, and but mainly June will be one-on-ones with everyone and kind of prepping for interviews. Don't forget, June 1st, you owe me a client signature, approved PR from an open source project, or you could have worked for that grassroots organization as well. Due June 1st. 100 hours project, beautiful MVP, crispy, due June 1st. Alrighty. Got through it quickly. Always want to give you that reminder so you know what's coming up. The client signature is for if you got a paid client or grassroots organization. You had to have gotten one of those 2 things, and you needed a signed contract for those 2 things. Yeah. Wanted to say thank you to everyone. The overwhelming amount of happy birthdays and warm wishes was really touching. I really appreciated it. People were reaching out on Twitter, on Discord, on everywhere, just to say happy birthday. I appreciated it. Thank you for all the warm wishes. It was really cool to see that kind of flood in. Alrighty. Today, I'm going to chill my music at this point. Today is Mental Health Action Day. Here we go. Boom. It's Mental Health Action Day. It's a day that I believe is new. Like, I think this is like a new thing that like Viacom and some other big players threw into. And it's the idea of just taking a day to take action in regards to yours or others' mental health. So if there's something you've been meaning to do mental health wise for yourself, today's the day to do it. If you've been meaning to support someone else in their mental health journey, today is the day to do it. So what we're going to do is we are going to intro react, talk very simply about the basics, why it's helpful, look at some atrocious code, and then we're going to stop because I want you to use the rest of class to take action, to do something either for yourself in terms of mental health or to support somebody else in terms of mental health. So Mental Health Action Day is today. We're going to make sure we reserve some class time to act. So as you all know, I've shared lots of times here on Twitch that I am bipolar and my life got twisted, turned upside down around 24, 25 and struggled for a really long time to get to a point of normalcy. And so for me, the idea that it took me so long and the idea is that something I still struggle with on a day-to-day basis is something that has been a big stressor in my life. But the wonderful thing is it gives me a point of understanding. And a lot of my students, a lot of y'all have reached out and said, hey, Leon, like, thank you for sharing. I'm going through the same thing. But often they're at the point that I was at when my symptoms were first kind of exhibiting. And so I've talked to a lot of you. I've talked to a lot of my past students about kind of how to take action and how to start down that journey to feeling better and returning to something that feels a little bit more normal to you. And so today I would love to encourage all of y'all to take that step, whatever it may be, because life is so much sweeter on the other side. And so if I can help, I'm going to be hanging out in the mental health channel after class. And so if you have any questions, you want any resources or support, I'll be in the mental health channel after we're done streaming to kind of talk through any things you want to talk through. Cool. Hey, I appreciate that, everybody. Yeah, Yobi, I think it's important, right? The mental health channel is called Mental Health. Yeah, it's called Mental Health. Yeah, it's in the main channel section. So there's like the Struggle Bus channel, and then you'll see the Mental Health channel right there as well. Alrighty. So, like I said, we're going to take some time for that today. And you'll notice a lovely music and light warning here on the slide. So I'm going to give you just 10 seconds if you need to mute yourself or turn it down because we got something to celebrate, folks. All right, 5 seconds. Boom. Let's go. 11 out of 100. Let's go. It's 11. 1-1. 11. 1-1. Let's go. The drop. Alrighty. So this one's special too. This one's really cool. So I have permission to share a few things. So I'm going to share the things I have permission to share. But congratulations, Aperi. We have someone that has an offer to transfer from customer support to engineering. So this is something that we've talked a lot about, right? A lot of folks are already at a company that they love working at, or it's a company that's treated them well, as a place that they might want to stay. And what they want to do is not leave that company, but move into engineering. And so Anonymous, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. I appreciate that. Look at them in chat. We go get. Exactly. We go get. And so to me, this is an important one, because we've talked about this, right? Where we said, like, hey, you might not want to go to a different company, but you might want to transfer internally. So they have an offer to transfer from customer support to engineering. And to me, that's huge. That's beautiful. We don't get got. We don't get. We go get. We go get. Exactly. So congrats. If we can just like spam emotes and congratulations in chat, I would really appreciate it.
Try.
First try. Exactly. Is there an echo? I'm gonna put my Bob spam in here. Thank you, everybody. So congrats. That's huge. Just look at some stuff here. Yeah. So one of the things that they said to me that I wanted to just say real quick that meant a lot is I'm so nervous and excited. Been wanting this for a long time. Finally have the tools to make the change. That's what we're talking about, folks. We're getting the tools on our tool belts to make these changes, to make the moves that we want to make. We're on a roll. As Drake would say, we're on a roll like Cottonelle. I was made for all this shit. That's what I feel like right now. So congrats. This is wild. Slay. Aperi. Back to back. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Will with the 1,000 bits. Whoa, let's go. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Anonymous, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That's wild. So another one for the books. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. I'm starting to smell 20. I'm starting to smell 20, folks. Ooh, you smell it? Am I the only one? Y'all smell that? What is that? I love. That's a good smell. I smell 20. That's what it smells like to me. I smell 20. Telefang with the Pokemon card redemption. We'll do that at the end for you. Alrighty, let's keep it moving, folks. We had a special newsletter raffle today. So if you open the newsletter, there was a secret link to enter the raffle that was in the newsletter for a Micro Leon sticker. I have a new batch of stickers and masks and other fun stuff coming in today. So actually, this one's be directly through Streamlabs, but we do have a new batch coming in to finish out the rest of the swag and stuff like that. But if you open the newsletter and you click the special link, I am going to open a raffle for you right now. As you all might remember, here are the rules. If you enter the raffle, and should you win, and you did not click the link and fill out the secret form, you get banned from everything for life. So you'll get banned from Twitch, you'll get banned from Discord. So only enter the raffle if you know that you filled out the form. That's the secret here. All right. Give me a reason, man. Blah's itching. All right, so let me go ahead and run this raffle real quick. I'm going to open it back up. All right, resuming entries. If you have filled out the secret form, you can now do !Raffle and enter. Keep this open for a second or two. If you would like to join the newsletter, you can do !Newsletter in chat. That'll give you the link. You can use that to sign up for the newsletter. I announce all the good stuff there first, and you can win some wonderful prizes. Thank you, Reza. Alrighty. Going to go ahead and close this one. 3, 2, 1. All right, entries are closed. Going to go ahead and pick a winner. Bobby Lynn. Hey, that's awesome. Congrats. Make sure you, Bobby Lynn, make sure you click that link. Because if you click that link in stream, you can redeem it right away, and it should get sent to you directly. So make sure you click that link, and let's come in your way. Thank you for reading the newsletter. All right, that is completed. Nice. All righty, folks. Reading pays. Let's talk about React. Ooh, let's get stretching real quick. Ooh, let's talk about React. So, like I said, today, just why. That's it. Just why. Talk about some big topics here. That's it. But before we jump into React, there's two things I want to say. One, read the docs. Part of your homework this weekend will be to read the documentation. One of the things that you all are about to do is to leave this wonderful bubble. You're going to leave this bubble where I am not kind of giving you information and distilling it. You have to do all of that. The reason why I assigned that reading in the work is because before we even talked about React, is because I need you to start getting into the habit of going through the muck of tutorials on your own, of going through the muck of documentation on your own. And so I'm going to ask you this weekend to read the docs. The React docs are some of the best. Oh, Jesus. What's up, Nick? How you doing? The React docs are some of the best documentation that you'll ever see. And so if you can do it with any documentation, if you're going to be able to do it with React, you're going to be able to do it with React, and you'll be able to do it, right? Like, all the other documentation out there is not as good as the React docs. So it's a good place to start to wet your teeth a little bit, to get used to the idea that all you might have is some shoddy documentation and maybe some Stack Overflow posts to like guide your learning. And so I want you all to read the docs, get used to it, get comfortable with it. I know a lot of folks kind of don't like the reading. They really rely on the videos. They really rely on these other things that are that they feel like might be more beneficial to them. You got to get good at the reading. You got to get good with the docs. And at least the React docs are pretty damn good. They do have a practice tutorial, exactly. Does React love them back? I think React does love back, Nick. If you all don't know, Nick is one of RC's illustrious experts in residence alumni, now doing big things, sponsored by Stripe, and a React guru. They have a application called Use Shopping Cart, which enables you to use React to add shopping cart functionality. It's super popular these days. They also built the app I told y'all about, the T7 Chicken app, right? That app got them into learning React and is used by tech and players around the world. So I would say React loves them back. Dab and Leon do not share the same views on the React docs. Dab, you don't like the React docs? I think in terms of in terms of like docs from everything I've ever had to experience, React is up there in the best. I've seen some really bad documentation. Are we going to learn with classes or functionality or functions, you mean? Yeah. We're going to see both. But for tonight, I don't want you to worry about that. I don't want you to worry about class-based components. I don't want you to worry about functions. I don't want you to worry. That's not what we're worried about right now. There's so much stuff that we have to learn. We'll dig into that next Tuesday, next Thursday. We're gonna see some atrocious code tonight, right? We're gonna see some bad, vomity muck tonight because we're not worried about the good stuff. We're not worried about looking good, looking clean, best practice, right? So we're gonna see from the beginning, right? We're gonna cover kind of classes together. We're gonna cover functional components together. We're gonna cover hooks together. So we're gonna get to all that fun stuff, but I don't want to start there. I think too many people go off the deep end, and yeah, it's too much. We'll get there. Yeah, you should be able to do links, Nick. Hi, hey, thank you for the 8 months. I'm here for the vomity muck. Let's go. Yeah, if you want to check out the used shopping cart there that I was mentioning, Nick just dropped the link. Check it out. All right. Before we jump into React real quick, though, I just want to review some ES6 Plus JS. When I say ES6 Plus, what do I mean, chat? When I say ES6 Plus, what the heck does that mean? ES6 Plus. Modern JavaScript. Okay, yeah. Current JavaScript. The good stuff. Yeah, the newer stuff. The stuff that came after 2015. So in 2015, we had a major additions to JavaScript, a lot of new things, a lot of new syntax, a lot of good stuff. And so we call all that goodness that came after 2015 ES6 Plus, because we have ECMAScript 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So you have all these different things where we added a bunch of stuff, and so passionately refer to it as just ES6 Plus for all of the newer the fancy stuff. Yeah, there you go. Cool. We've learned about classes together. The first bit of Vomity React that we're going to see is going to be using classes. And so it's important to remember that classes have a few things for them. We can have this lovely constructor that enables us to take in values. We can have methods, right? And so don't forget your JavaScripts that we learned just because we're moving into React. Remember that we're going to be using classes in the beginning, and so it's important to remember our constructors, our methods, and all that fun stuff that comes with it. Some things that we might see in React are spread. And so here is an example of array spread. Where is my... Can I use my finger? Hold on one second. I'm going to try something. I don't have... Sorry, I'm trying to fix my Astro pad here. Rip. 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. There we go. Coming online. There we go. Boom. All right. I think I should be good with that. So let me see if I can. All right. I can use my finger. I don't know where my pencil is, so I'm just going to use my finger today. All right. So here's spread. You'll notice that we have an array called foo with string A, B, and C in it. We also have an array called bar with D, E, and F in it. And I can use these ellipses to spread the values out of that array. So if I just did a console log of foo, you would see that I would get A, B, and C in the console. I can also create a new array, and in that new array, do the ellipses for each of them. And what that will wind up giving me is an array that has all the values inside of it. So you're going to see this spread operator quite a bit. And so it's important to know that it's just some newer syntax that we got when we got to ES6 plus goodness, and we can spread out our values. Is this better than concat? Well, you can use it for a lot of the same stuff that you would use concat for back in the day. So yeah, so it's kind of like a newer syntax that gives you the similar concat power. Yeah. Cool. You can also do object spread, and this is something that you might see with early React code quite a bit. I guess even more modern stuff too. But here you can see I have something called default style, and it is an object. That object has a color property, a font size property, and a font weight property. And then down here I have an object called style, and inside of it I have spread the original object. So what that enables to happen is all these values that were in the original object are now spread into this style object down here. So if I was to console log style, what you're going to see is I'm going to have all of the stuff that was in the original object, right? And you can see that I had font weight here, but since there is font weight in this newer style, that gets overridden, and then I have the background color was from the other one. So the idea here is that I am able to use this lovely spread operator to have this object and then have all those properties wind up in this new object if I wanted them. Cool. Cool. Is this like inheritance? I'm going to loosely say that you could see it as a way of inheriting properties from a different object, but I'm not going to get close to something like, say, like it's like prototypal inheritance or anything like that. But yeah, it's extending more so, I would say, right? So like we're extending, right? We're able to take this value from here and plop it into this value here. So it's just a good way of like, all right, I had all these values that were here. How can I also make sure that they're inside of this object as well? Cool. Spread is great for arrays and never use on objects though. Yeah. Cool. All right, so something you might see. The other thing that you're going to start seeing quite a bit is destructuring. I can never say this. Destructuring. Destructuring is something that you've probably already seen in some of our code, right? You might have seen it a few times already. We saw this a lot. Can anybody remember in our binary upload boom code where we saw destructuring? It wasn't array destructuring. It was with objects. You remember what that was? I remember where we saw it with the objects. We had one really specific place where I was like, oh, this is this thing. Yeah, we saw it with the... Yeah, it came with the auth, right? Inside of our auth, we had the ensure route or ensure guest, right? You might have originally saw that in one of Brad's videos, and then it was inside of our code base too, where we had the ensure auth and ensure guest. That was a little bit of destructuring there, and so we have seen this before. So let's go ahead and take a look at the array destructuring first. So here we go. We have an array. And that array has two values. Subtoast A, thank you for the 7 months. All right. We have two values, string Bob, string 100 devs. And then in this array that we have on the left-hand side, we have name and team. So what's going to wind up happening is we're going to have this variable called name that's going to be assigned to the value of string Bob. Then we're going to have this value of team that's going to be assigned to the value of string 100 devs. So when I go ahead and I try to use that variable of name, I get string Bob back. And when I go in and try to use that variable of team, I get string 100 devs back. And so the cool thing is I can use this destructuring to have a bunch of values that I want to put into their own, say, variables. And so that can speed up quite a few things that you might want to do. Thank you for the 6 months, right? I don't really use it too often with arrays, but I do use it a lot with my objects. So here I have an object, right? I have an object, and that object has Bob and 100 devs in it. And what I can do is this is actually a little bit, I don't really like this code, honestly, but same thing. Name becomes Bob, team becomes 100 devs, right? And so with name and team, you can use these values and wind up with the same thing, where I have these variables, right? And these variables wind up holding individual values that came out of the object, right? And so if you want to learn a little bit more about this, you can see the link right here for Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp has an amazing article that walks through this destructuring in both arrays and in objects. And so there's a lot of good examples in here. And I like their example here way better than mine because I messed that up. I think that code was incorrect. So here you go. I like their destructuring example here. You can see that we have this variable of person, which is an object that's holding name, country, and job. And if we come down here, you can see that we have that object with name, country, and job. And what I'm able to do here is have this deconstructor right here with name, country, and job, setting it equal to person. So what winds up happening is now we have this individual variable called name that's going to have the Sarah value, an individual variable called country that'll have the Nigeria value, and this individual variable called job that'll have the value of developer. And so we can go ahead and have this like very complex object, or go deeper if we want. And then from that, wind up pulling out the individual values that we want, assigning them to individual variables if we want. And that can speed up a lot of things, right? A lot of things once we get into React world. So I didn't want, when you're in the muck of our React code, to see it for the first time. And so I wanted to just kind of quickly show it here, but I highly encourage you to read through this article because it'll save some confusion when we start getting into our React code next week. It will, pro. It will, pro. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have my keys. This is incorrect. Don't pay attention to this. Look at the Free Code Camp article. But yeah, so I wanted y'all to make sure that you saw those kind of nice ES6 things before we get into React code. I highly encourage you to, once again, read the docs and to read that article just so that next week comes a little bit easier to you. All right. Now, tonight, like I said, not about showing you good React code. Not about showing you clean React code. I could care less about the code I'm about to show you. It's not the point. Tonight is trying to understand like why we might use React and some examples that might aid in our understanding, even if those examples are old, muck, and disgusting. So you've been warned. I'm about to show you some vomity, chunky code because I think they're good examples of where we've been, how we got there, but you've been warned. All right. React is a library for handling your UI. Time to go home. That's it. It's a wrap. That's all it is. I'll see you Tuesday. We're not doing a raid. Good night. Peace. No, please don't leave. React is a library for handling your UI. It allows you to write components, which you can reuse and extend when needed. It does not handle anything else. React is a library for handling your UI. So let's start there. Chat, who are the original creators and maintainers of React? Anybody remember who that is from your reading? Yeah, the original creator was Facebook. So here is an older Facebook profile of one of my past students that gave me permission to use their profile, but I've blanked out everything that was important. So it's still like an older Facebook profile, but I've blanked out everything. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this for a bit. So when I say UI, chat, what do I mean by UI? Because I said on the previous slide, React is a library for handling your UI. What the heck is a UI, chat? User interface. What the heck is a user interface? Stuff that the user sees and interacts with. I like that, OCC. Yeah. It's the stuff that the user sees and interacts with, right? So if we were dealing with MVC, where would our UI be in that MVC model? Yeah, it would be our views, right? Exactly. So we know that React is really only concerned, right? Is really only concerned with what? If we're dealing with React, we're only really dealing with our what? Yeah, our views. Exactly. So it's going to be something that just not my happiness. It's just going to be something that helps us with our views. Now, Facebook had a problem. And I think it's a problem. And give me some creative liberty here. I don't work at Facebook. I never worked at Facebook. But I think it's a problem that we've all had collectively together too. And that's that their UI was getting pretty complicated. Looking at this Facebook kind of page here, like this is somebody's like I guess like your not your profile page, but like your feed page. What are you noticing about this feed page? What do you notice? Kat said it's too much. So busy, not aesthetic. It has a lot going on. A lot of things. Now, let's keep it real. If we right now were to build everything like as Facebook has it, like if we just took Facebook and we decided to build it on our own, we're going to wind up with a lot of stuff that makes our lives really horrible. Let's go back and take a look at it and keep in mind, like, what about our life as a developer would be horrible? If you're looking at this, what are some things that would make your life pretty bad? All of it. Let's think a little critically here. How to maintain it, everything. I like that. Maintainability is a big thing. There are so many pieces. We got this sidebar, creating posts, stories, feed, your pages, your recent listings, your games, your like your friends that are signed in or not signed in. So much stuff, right? So maintainability is going to be a big thing here. But let's think about how this can get really wild. Let's think about how this can get really wild. Right now, what do you see? What is this right there? What did I just circle? What did I just circle? Somebody that uses Facebook. What did I just circle? Active stuff, red dots, notifications. Exactly. So those red dots aren't always there. Those red dots are only there when there's something like new to watch or there's like something new in the marketplace. So if right now you had to code that, what would you do? Where would you put that code? Where would that code be? We might be able to use like EJS, and maybe we could have like a lot of like conditional logic inside of our EJS. If we weren't using EJS, then we might have like a lot of like really disgusting like conditional logic in our JavaScript, maybe. Right? So we need some sort of conditional logic at least for this to be like red or gray or like not there. Right? How about this over here? What changes about that? A number. But sometimes it's not a number, right? Sometimes it's the number is 17. Sometimes the number is 1, right? Sometimes it is not any number at all. Sometimes it's like grayed out. So once again, we're going to need a lot of what type of like logic. If we're doing it like the old school way, we need a lot of what? Yeah, we need some more like conditional logic. We need some like Ajax to update the number. We need a lot of tiers. Like there's a lot of stuff to do it. All right. Once again, we also have like when our friends are like logged in, sometimes like you would see like those green dots that would come up when your friends were online, right? And so sometimes the dots are gray, but sometimes the dots are green. Those dots often look a whole hell of a lot like these red dots, except they start as red and they're never green. And all of this, right? Like if we were being real about it, all of that like conditional logic, all of that like client-side JavaScript, that might all be in one what? If we were doing it like right now, that all might be in one what? One file, baby. All of this madness, right? Not match, I shouldn't say madness. All of this wildness would be in one file. Hold on. It's Mental Health Action Day. 1 second. Let me pull something up here. Boop, 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 boop. Bruh. Here we go. Copy. I don't like the word madness. I don't like the word crazy. I try to pull them out of my speech. I thought there was a list here. Oh, I have a list somewhere. Hold on. Let's see if I can find the list. 1 second. This is important. All right, here we go. I need a good word. Can somebody just give me the list? Anybody have the list? Come on now. All right, I'll find the list when we take a break, because I think it's important that we at least share the list with you. But I have it on my Slack channel. I just can't find it. But I have a list of words that you can use if you're trying to remove ableist language from your speech. So let's use wild for now. We have all of this chaos. Exactly, chaos. We have all this chaos. And right now, this chaos is all in one JS file. Let's come back and take a look at it. All of this chaos is in one JS file. That is ludicrous, right? That's a good one. That's ludicrous. mindyourmind.ca. I don't see it. It's all the absurdity, exactly. The I can't say some of these words. The preposterousness of this is absolutely ludicrous, right? So right now, if we were to just think about this, right? If we were really just doing this right now, and there are other ways to solve this, right? Like we're not saying that this is the only way, but right now, all of this stuff would be in one file, and we would be managing all of that logic, all of that, right? All of that conditional, all of those things, right? All of these little doodabs and doohickeys, the things that update, things that change, we'd have to sit there and think through it. We'd have to figure out how to maintain it. And Facebook just kind of kept growing and growing and growing and growing, right? And their answer to it was React. React has 3 key things that I want you to think about tonight and over the weekend. 3 things that I want you to really think about. 1, components. 2, props. And 3, state. Because if you can understand components, props, and state, you can see how our lives can be changed forever. Okay? Right now, what are you noticing about a lot of Facebook's UI? What are you noticing about a lot of Facebook's UI? Yeah, Izzy. It's used again and again. There are a lot of things that are just kind of reused, right? You're going to have a lot of posts. You're going to have a lot of stories, all right? You're going to have some things that at face level look like they're individual, but if we think about like these dots that come on for the feeds and the dots that come on for your friends, they're kind of the same, right? So this idea is that Facebook is like, wait a minute, our UI is getting out of control here, but we're also kind of reusing the same components over and over again. Oh. Oh. We're kind of reusing the same things over and over again, right? And this is our feed. But if we're on our profile page, is a post that's on the feed fundamentally different than a post that's like on our profile? No. But if we were doing it our way, like the way that we've been doing it, right? If we were doing it the way that we've been doing it, And we built this entire page in our massive JS file. And then we decided to go and build a profile page. We need to redo the whole thing over again. So our code base would just double. Even though a post on our feed is the same as a post on our profile, we'd wind up doing it all over again. So Facebook with React created something called component. Well, they didn't create it, but they have components. And the idea behind a component is a reusable, right? A reusable bit of code that we can reuse throughout our application. Because we know a post on our feed is the same thing as a post on our profile. We know that if we could see it, a like that shows up on our feed page is probably also similar to a like that shows up anywhere else. So if we're going to invest in all the time to build out not only like the DOM elements, right? It's not just what we see, right? It's also the logic that can be kept together too. Like if we have this bell on every page, right? If we have this bell on every page, that's a lot of that conditional logic that's saying, all right, if there's no values, make it grayed out. If there is a value, make it white. Show the number inside the red box. All of that logic, we can keep that inside the component too. So that way, when we are on a different page or we're doing something somewhere else in our application, not only are we worried about, not only do we not have to worry about like the visual aspect of the UI, but all the logic and all of the things that power that component can be transported and used anywhere else in our application. Yes, they are reusable components, right? Yeah, you can think of them as similar concept to partials. Yeah, you can think of them as similar concept to partials. But there's something else that we get when we're using components with React that partials really can't give us, or we can't give us without doing a lot of extra work, right? So we have this idea of a reusable component, and we know if we're building a large application, we can reuse these components over and over again. And so that reduces our code base, but also makes it so much more maintainable. Let's say I want to build a new page, right? I want to build a whole new page for Facebook. And on that page, the only thing that shows up is posts. It gets rid of all this extra stuff, right? The only thing the page shows is post. It's like a naked news feed, right? It's just the posts. If I wanted to sit down and create that page, how quick could I do it? Memphis, thank you for the hydration. Super quick. Almost instantly. Because we would already have a post component. So all I would have to do is use that component. And what I probably would really have, because what you wind up doing is you wind up nesting your components, I probably have a post container component, a container that holds a bunch of posts. So I would literally just need like one line that's like post container, and it's dusted. And the cool thing is, if anybody wanted to work on that page and they wanted to know how the post works, they can just go and look at the post component. They're not chasing down CSS files. They're not chasing down JavaScript files. They're not chasing down any of this other stuff. If they want to see how the posts work, they go to the post component and everything is there. This makes your code base so much more maintainable because you're reusing the same pieces and not adding extra stuff, right? You're reusing the same pieces so that when somebody's working, heck, and I don't know if this is true, but let's say you want to build Instagram. Is a post fundamentally very different on Instagram as like maybe like a, well, let's say a story? Is like a story fundamentally different than like a story on Instagram? So now we have not only like this code base, but any other code base. You can start sharing components across these different code bases, right? And your rate of development is so much faster. And your rate of being able to work with other developers is so much more easy because whenever they want to work on a story, they go directly to the story component, right? So the very first thing that React gives us is components. Does it make sense why having your UI broken down into reusable components can make a lot of sense? Does that make sense? Does it make sense why we want to break down our user interfaces into reusable components? Cool. But we're not done there. We're not done yet. My stress level just dropped. I hope so. We're not done yet. There are two other really important things to React that really set it apart. They even set it apart from things like the partials, right? So when we come back from break, we're going to take a look at props and state, and using just this example, figure out what prop and states do for us that makes our lives easier, makes it easier to write code, makes our code more maintainable, right? We're not going to use any fancy words. We're not going to do anything that's weird. We're just going to use this example. We're going to talk about something real world, right? But we're going to take our break. It's mental health action today. Let's take a mental health action. Let's take a break. Let's take a real break. I'm going to put a 5-minute timer on the clock here. All right, folks, take your break. I'm going to go ahead and run ads as well. See you in 3. Made it back just in time for a break. Yeah, there have been a lot of gifted subs recently, Izzy. We're going to get into all that good stuff. We're going to get into, like, what about separation of concerns? Yeah, we'll definitely get to that towards the end. Since folks are taking a break, I don't want to get too deep into it right now, but yeah. All right, folks, if you're able, please get up, hydrate, do what you got to do, take that break. I'm going to look for that list. I know I have it. It wasn't a website, it was a PDF, that's why. We got an extended timer. Oh, I was busy looking for that. All right, here, let's take a look. Take a break, folks. I'm going to add 2 minutes of time. Once this hits 2 minutes, I'll add up to 4. I love that we're taking an extended break. Yeah, I got you, Astro. I'm going to take a break, too. I got to stand up. Question. I had the director of engineering at one of my dream companies accept my connection invite on LinkedIn today. In my invite, I had mentioned the open QA engineering position they have. They haven't messaged me about it or anything. Should I message them about it or just thank them for adding me? Definitely message them about it. If you already put that in your message to them originally, they definitely saw that, and that's probably why they added you. They're probably just busy. The thing I always say when you're like looking for a job, let me change this to 4 minutes, is don't attribute to malice what could be just like busy. Because a lot of these folks they got a full-time job and they're trying to hire on top of it. So definitely follow up. The more you follow up, the more likely they are to get here. The more likely they are to hear back. And if they just ghost you after a couple of times, it's okay. You move on, but shoot your shot. Biggest timer on Twitch, exactly. Why would websites not use React? There are other competing things too, right? There's Angular, there's Vue, and they all do things slightly different. Also, if you're just building a simple like one-page site, then React might not be like, you might not want to go through all the effort of setting up the components or usability. But if you know you're going to have a UI that you want to have maintainable in the long run, I really like React for doing it. There are other competitors too that do it. The reason why I teach React, even though I might use something else professionally, is that right now it's really in demand. Like every job posting asks for it, and so instead of teaching Vue or any of the other up and comers, I teach React just because it's what I see the most on job boards. And well, not just on job boards, but from like actual hiring partners that tell us that they want to see React skills. So Indifferent says, so many websites that use frameworks libraries that shouldn't. Exactly, yeah. It's really when you have a UI that you know you want to be like maintainable over the long term. Cool, Cash, I'll take a peek. On Destructuring, someone mentioned an entry-level React job posting for 145K. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these like higher tier startups, their entry-level jobs are pretty wild in terms of price right now. All right, I'm gonna take my break real quick, Burb. Indifferent said, I think React should be restricted to UI with highly dynamic content. Yeah, that's a good reason to use React, right? Gabriel said, it would be nice if you could explain one-way data binding with the virtual DOM. I will, not tonight. We'll definitely get into that on Tuesday. It's one of the big things we'll cover. I might have an offer coming up at a startup, and I was thinking how part-time would potentially pay better than I'm making now full-time. Yes, I've seen that happen quite a bit. I think even Sam mentioned that too. Like the small amount of hours they were doing equaled what they would make at their full-time, at their previous role. All right, folks, come on back. Alrighty, folks, come on back, come on back. Let me chill the music here. $10 a week, that is. That's wild, Sam. So, as a developer, Sam's 10 hours a week is replacing their full time. That's wild. That's really cool. All right, folks, let's come on back to this. So, we start talking about the idea that we understand when it comes to React, components can be really helpful. The idea that we can reuse components elsewhere on our page, elsewhere in our applications, maybe even across applications, is something that's really beautiful, right? The idea that you can have these components that get reused. You don't have to worry about rewriting all of that code. And if anybody wants to come and fix that thing, they go directly to that component, and all of our stuff should be encapsulated inside of that component. Cool. All right. So now, if we're looking at this UI, we often have things that are kind of repeating. Now, I'm not saying that this is what's actually happening underneath the hood, but I think it's a thought exercise. So here we have part of this UI, these red dots, right? And then on our contact, what if your friend is logged in, what color are the dots next to their contact? Anybody know that? Anybody use Facebook enough to remember that? Yeah. They're green. So the dots for if there's like something new to be watched or something new in the marketplace, they're red. But the dots for if your friend's on are green. Are the dots fundamentally different than each other? No. They probably even have a lot of the same logic. Like if this thing is true, you should be shown, and if it's not true, you should be like grayed out, right? So the only thing that's fundamentally different about these dots, they have the same logic, they have the same like signaling to the user, the same UI component, they're the same shape, they're the same everything, except for one different thing. What is that different thing? Not trying to trick you here. Not trying to trick you. Yeah. They're exactly the same except for color. Except for a color. So if these dots were a component, and I have reused this component on this very page, I used the component here, I used the component here, right? So if I was reusing these components, and the only thing different about these components that I wanted them to be was a base color, what could I use in the React world so that I can make these set of buttons red and these set of buttons green? Everything else is the same except for that one thing. We could use props, right? So props enable us to pass something into our component. So in this case, I could pass in the color. Let me redraw these here. I could pass in the color red for these dots, and I could pass in the color green for those dots. And that's it. I can reuse the same component in both places, and through the magic of properties or props, sorry, the magic of props, I can make these ones red and these ones green. This adds so much flexibility to our components. I can now reuse these components throughout my entire application. I could have the red dots for like warning somebody's going live. I could have green dots for warnings your friends are logged in. I could have blue dots for warning there's new information that's showing up, right? So I could reuse these kind of dots components throughout my entire application. But the only thing that really fundamentally has to change is that color. So I can pass that color in with a prop. Cool. So why React though? Because we want to get jobs. And right now, the quickest way to a job in terms of software engineering is full stack web development. And right now, the most in demand is React. Across hundreds of my students that are applying for jobs right now, React comes up time and time again. It's where the money resides. It's where the money resides. I gotta make that TikTok. I created a TikTok just for that TikTok. All right. Does that make sense? How we could pass something into our components and how that could add flexibility to our component. We can now reuse this component everywhere, right? We can now reuse this component everywhere and still have the slight differentiations based on what we want. Does that make sense at all? We'll get to state in a second. Starting to. All right, all right, all right. Cool. So we know that we have components. We can reuse these components. Sometimes when we're trying to use these components, we want all of the stuff, right? We want all the things about that component. We want the dots that go into the DOM. We want that size. We want that shape. We want everything, right? But the only thing that we want to make different is we want these dots to be red, so we pass in a prop of color red. And we want these dots to be green, so we pass in a prop of color green. So now I have components that can be reused, and I can pass in some values so that they can render differently, right? If I need them to. Let's think about some other stuff. What are some things that show up across? What are some other things that show up like across Facebook code base? Like what are some like components that you see in a lot of different places? So Facebook owns, of course, Facebook, but there's also like Instagram and all these things. Ooh, Bilal mentioned likes. Do you think likes as a component, right? Anonymous. Hey, Anonymous. Thank you for the gifted sub. Let's think about likes. Likes have a lot of stuff that we want to keep contained in a component. What do we have to keep track of when it comes to, like, what do we need to think about when it comes to likes? Yeah, we have like this count, right? And often it'll show like next to it, it'll show like the number. So as the likes go up, right? As more people like, that number goes up, 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 up. Right? We're seeing that on all of our posts, right? Whether it's a post on your feed, whether it's a post on your profile, whether it's a post on Instagram, right? The likes on Instagram are the exact same thing as the likes on Facebook, right? What's the only thing that changes? And this is like completely destroying how this works. This is a thought experiment. What's the really only big difference between the likes on Facebook and the likes on Instagram? It's just the icon. So what could we use to pass the appropriate icon into our component versus Facebook and Instagram? What could we use to pass in the appropriate icon? Yeah, we could have a like component, and we could have a prop of thumb up, or a like icon equals thumbs up, or a like icon equals like heart, right? And so we have the idea of like we could have that like component across our entire code bases, and just have a prop that gets passed in if it should be a heart or a thumbs up. I'm taking a lot of creative liberties here. All right. Cool. So we're getting that idea. We know the likes go up. We can also see that here, right here, with the bell icon. That bell keeps going up. Right now, with the code that we've been able to build before we've gotten to React, if I wanted that bell to go from 17 to 18, what would have to happen in our code bases right now? Spliff, hey, thank you for the 7 months. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, the only thing that we've seen so far is a page reload, right? We haven't done any Ajax stuff. We need like that page reloading. When you're on Facebook, think about all the stuff that's changing. Think about all the stuff that's constantly changing on Facebook, right? These dots going from gray to red, these dots going from gray to green, this going from 17 to 18. If you're like me, your friend requests are going through the roof, right? The likes are going up, the posts and the pages are like changing. Chaos. Utter chaos. We're not at a rave, right? Like we're not at a rave. Like Facebook's not going like refresh, right? And also, if we were trying to code it like we would normally do it right now, we're having to think of like all of this logic, all this stuff that we have to keep track of, we have to maintain, all this stuff that's probably in all these different files, and it's ugh. So, with React, we get components. We know that we can reuse those components, right, throughout our application. We know that if we want those components to have slight differences, we can pass in props to make them say start with green or start with red. And then there's one other really important thing that our components have, and that is state. You could think of state, right, as an object that exists inside of that component. And when that state changes, the component reacts. And when it reacts, it can re-render what we see in the DOM. Let me say that again. When the state changes, the component reacts. And the beautiful thing about the component reacting is that it has all the logic and everything that it needs to make these changes. And the really beautiful thing, right? Like the really beautiful thing is that the whole page doesn't have to refresh. And the really beautiful thing is we have something called the virtual DOM that makes it so that the only really thing that we're really concerned about changing is that this tiny, 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 tiny piece of what we'll eventually see. So we can have components that can be reused across our code base. These components can have things passed into them via props, and our components have state. When that state changes, our components can react. Okay? And they can make changes and do wonderful things. And so if we can understand those three concepts, we can start to understand the power behind React and why when you have a complicated UI where things are constantly changing, where you want to build out this UI for the long term, why React might be useful, right? Because we can reuse those components everywhere. Those components can have slight changes that we pass in via props. And these components have their own state so that we're not worried about managing like all the logic and what should be happening elsewhere in our code base. That state is part of the component, and we can keep it all nice and neat. Because if, let's say our bell here has a state of notifications, right? It has a notifications property on its state object, right? So remember, it's just an object. So we have a notifications property, right? And that notification property is 0 right now. What would happen to that? What should our bell be? What should our bell look like if the notifications property is 0? It's just a grayed out bell. But what if the notifications property is 1? What should it be now? It should be white, exactly, with the red box, right? And the number 1 in it. Think about if we didn't have components, we might have some of that like in client-side JavaScript. We might have some of that in our CSS files. We might have some of that like in our HTML. We might have this stuff all over the place. But with a component, we can keep that all together in one nice, neat package. That package can then be reused. And not only am I reusing like what it looks like, but all that logic that says, all right, well, if it's 0, then it should be great. If it's 1, it should be this. All these little things, right? All these little things that are changing and dynamic, and well, with React, we have it all nice, modular, reusable. We can make small changes by passing in props, and our components have state. So we don't have to worry about maintaining that value somewhere else, that we can contain it on the component level. And that component knows what to do when that state changes. Chat, what does the component do when the state changes? Speedwagon, thank you for the hydration. It reacts. So what's the catch? Why would I not use React? Do I need to sign my soul over or what? There are a lot of times where maybe if you're just trying to do something quick and like you're just doing like a personal project or something like that, you don't have a UI that has all these, like, I think Indifferent was saying, like these dynamic bits where everything's like changing and you got to keep track of all that. And it might be like overkill for like your portfolio or your profile. My personal site, my like blog, I use React, but I'm using something called Gatsby that spits out static files. So I use it because I just enjoy. I think if I'm going to build anything, I'm probably using React to build it these days. I really like that modularity. I like keeping things contained. I like the reusability of it. And so for me, I use it. But there are probably smaller projects where the UIs aren't as flashy, where you just don't need it. Yash, the cool thing is we can update state, and then once that state changes, it knows what to do. Would React replace Node at all? Yes. So React is only worried about the views, right? React is only worried about the views. It only handles the information that we need to display the user interface. Yeah. Cool. All right. We're going to take a look at some examples. We're going to see some of this in practice. We're going to work through some slides. And as I mentioned, give me some creative liberties with this. I think the code about the show is not code I want you writing in the future or on the job, but I think it's code that helps us highlight some really interesting things, and that's why I'm using it. All right. React has two really fundamental APIs. We have the React API that enables us to create components, and we have React DOM, which enables us to kind of render to the browser. Like we have those components, and React DOM enables us to render those components to the DOM. We have something called JSX, and it is a lovely syntax extension to JavaScript, and it really is just a shortcut for using this special create element API. So what it enables us to do, right, is spit out the HTML that eventually will get rendered to the DOM. So you can kind of think of this as like similar to like our EJS. It looks a hell of a lot like JavaScript, right? But it's eventually going to spit out our HTML, right? Now, we have some things to think in here, but I just wanted to highlight these things. Like I said, next week we're going to go deeper into all of this stuff, but for right now, I'm just giving you like the highlights. We already talked about how props are arguments that are passed into our components, right? JavaScript extreme. We talked about how we could pass in, like, say, a color prop and have it be green or red, right? So props are arguments passed into our React components. And then each of our React components have a built-in state object. Don't get confused here. It's just an object. And it's where you're going to store stuff related to that specific component. And the really cool thing is that when the state object changes, the component reacts and re-renders, right? So it'll re-render that 17 to an 18. It'll re-render your legs from 1 to 2. It'll re-render from gray to red when there's somebody going live, right? So once again, we have these like very high level fundamental things that we're talking about here. And the last little bit is something called the virtual DOM. When state changes, all right? When state changes and the component reacts and re-renders, right? And it re-renders. We have something called the virtual DOM that assists in this place. So instead of the whole page refreshing, what we're able to do is keep track of just the thing that changed and just update that particular piece, right? Just that particular piece. So keep that in the back of your mind. We're going to see it through some examples. All right. I'm about to show you some examples. None of these are my code. These are code that comes from the readings that I have highlighted. Like if you see any of the blue links, those are links that you should be reading. I really like this React.express. It's another thing that I think you should be adding to your reading queue. When I do the follow-up tonight, I'm going to post all the little readings that are here. We mentioned the docs. We mentioned React.express. This is a blog post that I really like. So I'm just trying to give you more reading. Like I said, I really want you to get used to the idea that your knowledge is not coming from me, that it's coming from deep within you and from the hard work that you put into digesting material, because you're all about to leave me and be on your own. And it's something that you need to practice. Okay. So giving you some reading, it's going to get a little bit heavier with the reading because I need you all to be able to do it, to be able to distill it, to understand it. Too dependent on this. I'll always be here, but you got to get better at the reading. All right. So like I said, these examples they're not mine. They come from the different readings that I'm giving you. So you can actually work through them through the reading as well. But they're all using code sandboxes. And code sandbox is really neat because with code sandbox, you can run stuff in the browser. It's like an editor that runs in your browser. I really like it. I share a lot of my code in code sandboxes, especially my like full stack code or something that requires like a server or a build process to run. If you got through the reading, you know that React, you typically need some sort of process to make it run, but don't worry, we'll get to that next week. All right. Like I said, vomit code. Do not use this going forward, but it's something I want to talk about right now. All right. What do you notice about this output here, chat? Flopsy, I like it better than Replit for bigger stuff, like full-on node applications or things like that. I like Replit for short stuff. Uh-huh. 3 different components with different props. So, like, I always do it. My hand came up to hide the screen. I know I talk about it a lot, but it's so funny. Like, it's such an innate thing that I just want to hide the screen by putting my hand in front of it. So even if you didn't look at the code, right? Like, let's say you couldn't see the code, right? You can't see the code no more. And you were just looking at this very simple application. Where I want you to be tonight is I want you to be able to see the components everywhere. I want you to assume that everything is components. You're going to look, oh, component there, component there, component. Oh, that's component. I want you to get into the mindset that everything is a component. I want you to be like, it's late. It's 2:00 in the morning. You should be in bed, but you're hungry. So you get out of bed, you go to the refrigerator, and you want to be like, oh, fuck, look at this refrigerator component. Look at this refrigerator component. Let me see what child components it has. You open up that refrigerator, and you see that like half empty jar of almond butter, right? And you're like, look at that almond butter component. It has a state. The state is 50% empty or 50% full, depending on your outlook on life, right? And so you go, you're in your stupor. You reach back. I got a small kitchen. I ain't got a Bill Gates kitchen. You reach back and you're like fumbling in the dark for a knife, and you take your knife component and you stick it into your almond butter component, and you pull out some almond butter, and you're just going to town on this almond butter, right? Delicious. The state has changed on your almond butter component, and the state on your Leon component, if you're me, has changed to even bigger, right? Because I'm going to town on this almond butter. So my state's just changing. I'm getting bigger and bigger. The almond butter state is changing. It's going smaller and smaller. Yes, with a knife. I'm about the knife. And that's it. So I want this weekend. What I want from y'all this weekend is I want you to see everything as a component, right? I want everything to be a component. How could I make this into a component, right? How could I make this into a component? How is it already a component? Notice the components in our everyday life. So when you look at this application, your spider senses should be firing like wild. You should be like, Leon, that is repeated UI elements. You are repeating UI elements here. And whenever we're repeating UI elements, we should be thinking about repeating what? When we have repeating bits of UI, we should be thinking about repeated what? Components. So good. So good. I love it. I love it. Y'all got. Y'all know React. Y'all thinking like React. You're like, everything's a component. I see rebits, reuse bits of UI here. Components. Boom. We're reacting. Peace, Nick. All right. So we got these reusable bits, right? Let's look at it. So here we are grabbing. We're using, when you see this, what is this here? What am I doing here? Anybody know what I'm doing here, this line of code that I've just highlighted? Nick really does mean when you have React questions, you should definitely hit up Nick. They're on the Discord. Happy to answer your React questions. They really mean it. There are some people that say, like, hit me up if you have questions. Nick actually means hit me up if you have questions. Yeah, it's a little bit of destructuring here, which is cool to see. All right. Here I have a class component. Oh, whew. Look at me using class components and nothing happened. So here we have a class component. And there's some silliness going on here. Right? There's some silliness going on here. And we're using some of the stuff we saw earlier. So here I have a default style, and I'm using my spread here to bring it in. And even if we don't understand what's happening here, 'cause remember, tonight's not about knowing all this code. Please hold on. I absolve you of needing to understand the code tonight. Please do not look at this code and be like, I have to understand this. That's not what we're trying to do. We understand that there are components, there are props, there are state. We're just trying to see examples that demonstrate props, components, and state. I don't care about any line of code. We won't use any of this code going forward. So please, like, absolve yourself of, like, needing to understand the code that's happening here. Do not get lost in the syntax. It literally does not matter. Okay? It's about understanding components, state, and props tonight. All right. So here, we go back to this dumpster fire. And you can see that I have some fun stuff going on here. I have this card class that's extending a component. So what I've done right here is I have created a card component. And you can see that I have this lovely styling that's here, part of the component. And you can see that this component, let me make this a little bit bigger here, renders out a what? What renders out this? what comes out of this component? Like, what does this component spit out? Yeah. So this whole component, all it's used for is to create a div. Cool. So now I have this card component that I can reuse wherever I want. Right? Down here, I am going to select a portion of my app. If I go over here and I look at my actual HTML file, the only thing that's in this HTML file is a div that has the ID of app. Shells, yes. We have this ID of app, right? So what I am doing is I am going to take this stuff here and I am going to plug it into here. That's all I'm doing down here with this render method. All I'm doing is I'm taking this div here and plugging it into this spot in my HTML. So I see that there's this place that I can put it, and that's all I'm doing is I'm putting this stuff into that place. Now, somebody said, isn't this like Babble spitting it out? Remember, this is all what? What type of code is this? What am I writing here? We said it was one of the... Yeah, it's vomit. It's JSX, right? And the reason I can tell is because some stuff is weird. It's weird, right? Like, look. Is that how we do border color in CSS? Nah. All of these are a little, they all look kind of the same. They're a little sus. A little sus here and there, right? So that should be the hint that whenever you're writing JSX, you're using this camel case syntax. And JSX, just like our EJS renders out DOM elements, this JSX will render out DOM elements for us as well. So things are going to be a little bit different. The syntax is going to be a little bit different. And that's why I'm saying right now, do not worry about the syntax. Just know that this whole point of this card component is to spit out this div, right? And the cool thing down here is I am reusing this component how many times? How many times am I reusing this component? Yeah, 3. And so I can see in my DOM over here on the right-hand side, 3 different components. And they're all card components, except they're all different colors. So if I want to use the same component, but I want to change one value about it, or I want to make them slightly different when they're instantiated, when they're created, what can I use to pass values into my component? Props. Yeah, I can pass in props. And so here you can see my props. I have, what is the name of my prop? I have a prop here. What's the name of my prop? Thanks, Flopsy. Thanks for my props. Yeah, I have a prop called color. And on each of these cards, I have a color prop. And you can see I'm passing in sky blue on one, I'm passing in steel blue on the other, and I'm passing in yellow on this one. I could change it from yellow to pink. All right. And when I created this prop, when I pass in this pink, you would see that the component would be pink, right? So when I'm creating my components here and I'm using them, I can pass in these props. The beautiful thing is inside of the component, I can use those props. So here you can see I'm saying background color equals this dot props dot color. This dot props dot color. That's how I'm able to use these props. Hey, Sarah, welcome. It feels dirty from a separation of concerns perspective. Let's talk about it. So first of all, separation of concerns, first and foremost, when I teach it, right? The separation of concerns, first and foremost, when I teach it, is to get you thinking critically about the code that you're writing, right? That's the first reason why I teach separation of concerns early on, right? Is I want you to be thinking about the code that you're writing, where you're going to be putting that code, how it impacts you, how it impacts other developers that you're working on, and make smart decisions so that your future self and the developers on your team can work with the code that you're writing. If we're moving to the idea of a component, doesn't it make sense to keep all your stuff in that component or with that component? Right? Doesn't it make sense that if we're going to be reusing these components all over the place, that we would want, right? That we would want all of the things that affect that component to be in one place, right? So we're moving into the idea that we have this larger archetype pattern, MVC, and we know that React is handling the views. Our primary concern is separating out our model, our controllers, and our views. And then once we're inside of our view, we're worried about really dealing with the presentation and the presentation logic. And so while this looks like we are violating our concerns, we are not throwing the baby out here with the bathwater, right? The idea here is that we want to use components. We want to keep all that stuff together. And by doing so, we are actually adding to the maintainability, the reusability of our code. And that's why when we were in our HTML and our CSS and JavaScript way back in the day, that was our goal at the end of the day anyway, was just to make our code more maintainable, easier to read, and to know where to go when we wanted to make changes. We accomplished that same thing with the components that we're writing now. In other words, just so you know, you got. But you learned. And that's more important. Cool. A lot of folks are saying, Leon, I don't understand this props.children. Good, doesn't matter. We'll get to that next week. The only thing I want you to focus on right now is, hey, we had this color prop. We passed it in. We were able to use it. And that's how we're able to have our different components that have different background colors when they're created. Can we mental health now? We'll get there. Hold on. Where time are we at? We're at 2:05. Oh, we do need to take a break. All right. So we just saw props. We're going to take a break now. And when we come back from break, we're going to see state, and then we're going to stop. It's just the syntax cross. It's just the syntax for how we deal with it, with the props. Cool. Remember, this is we're also like writing JSX above, and it's kind of the syntax for the JSX above as well. All right, let's take our 5-minute break, please. When we come back, we're going to see state, and then we're going to stop and have some time for us to take our mental health actions. Can I have my Pokemon card during break? Yeah, sure. Let's pull it up. All right, let me change this to 5 minutes. Let me put on some music. Please, if you're able, take a break, hydrate, do what you got to do. Adil, change it to a 7-minute timer. Oh, we out here, folks. 7 minutes. Go ahead. Just a bell. Don't worry. We're going to get into something that makes the syntax a lot easier. Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and start some break music. Please, if you're able, get up, hydrate, do what you got to do. I'm going to run some ads to force the break, and also so new folks that join us don't have to sit through them. See you in 3 minutes. I did, Bobby Lynn. When we stop tonight, when we stop the break, I will show that list and I'll share it on Discord after our class. I am going to take a break myself. Burb, we'll come back. We'll do some Pokemon cards. Be right back. Oh yeah. I'm just happy y'all here. I don't know. I just gives me joy to see all y'all here, pushing yourself, learning new things. All right, let's see here. How was your just got here? How was your birthday? My birthday was lit. I went to Harry Potter World. Can't get any better than that. Any suggestions on open source projects you can join before June 1st? Imran gotcha. Yeah, firsttimersonly.com. If you watch our class where we first covered all of the things that were due, we shared how to contribute to open source, and there's a bunch of resources, but First Timers Only is a great resource. It'll show you all of the open projects that have stuff you can commit to that are friendly to folks that are committing to open source for the first time. Are you going to show us the wand you got? Hell yeah. Hold on. Let me go grab it. Burb. So I got my wand. Here's my wand. Comes in this nice Ollivander's box, which is chroma keyed out because it's like an olive green. It's even invisible, exactly. And so inside, like a nice little casing for it. So different types. There's all different types of wood, hazel, whatever you want. And so they all have different hold on, I don't know if I can, different properties. And like when you're there, you can either do two things, like Pottermore. Pottermore has like a thing you can do, and it tells you what your wand type should be. But if you don't do the Pottermore, you can like when you're in the Ollivander shop, they have all these different like little scrolls that tell you what all the different wood types do. And it's kind of similar to, like, I don't know, it's kind of, it reads like astrology, like kind of like what your sign would be, but like what your wand type would be. And so that was pretty cool. And so you pick the one you want. And then on the tip, there's no way that this like focuses on just that tip. But that tip, there's like a little IR sensor. And throughout the theme park, it comes with this little map here. And throughout the theme park, it shows you places that you can cast. And so you walk up to the different places that you can cast, and you do the motion that's on the map, or they have like little plaques on the ground. And when you do that motion, some magic happens. So like lights come on or things move. It's really neat. And so like you see all these like little kids like running around and they get really excited and they're like doing magic all over the place. And then you see me running around doing magic and I get all over the place. Hassan Pepper Inc. said, do you think the annual pass is worth it? That's what we got because we're close to it. Like I really want to just take my laptop and work at the Three Broomsticks like I would work at like a Starbucks. That's something I think would be fun to do. So I know we'll go back, and so we got the pass, yeah. And we have like our nieces and stuff that we want to take. I didn't get the butter beer. I got the pumpkin juice because that's definitely vegan. Yeah. And it was delicious. It was really good. I don't know what that is. All right, folks, come on back. Come on back. I'm in LA, Scipio. We are going to do, yeah, me and Blah were just talking about it. We're going to be doing an LA meetup. It'll be our first 100 Devs meetup. So we're going to do like an LA area meetup, hopefully in June. So yeah, me and Blah were just talking about, we're going to start planning that out. Should be fun. All right, folks, come on back. Let's take a look at our second example here. I'm going to chill the music. Alrighty. Now I know where the good taco trucks are. Let's go. Alrighty. So we saw that we could reuse our card components and we could pass in our props. So here we're reusing the card component 3 times, passing in a different prop each time, which gives us that default color. Our second example, and all these examples are clickable on the link, so if you want the code, you can just click the link. Our second example is a little bit different, and let's go ahead and take a look. So at 10 degrees Fahrenheit, water is considered to be a solid state of matter. When would water no longer be a solid state of matter, chat? Who's good at their science trivia? At Fahrenheit. Freedom units, please. Cool. So people are saying 33. There we go. 33. It's a liquid state of matter. Now, when would it be a gas state? When would it be gas? Without Googling. Yep. 212. All right. Greater than 212. All right. So we can do like a number like 3, solid, liquid, and let's do like 3, something like that for gas. Cool. What are you noticing about this? What are you noticing here, folks? React! It reacts! It's reacting! Yeah. It's reacting based on this number that's changing. Right? All right. So if we come here, let's make this a little bit smaller, and we look, we're going to notice that this component, this water component has a state. And that state has a current temperature property. So what do you think I'm doing? Before we look at any other line of code, before we look at another line of code, when we change this number, what do you think we're changing? Whenever we change that number, what do you think we're changing? I think OCC got it first. Yeah, we're changing the state. And when a React component's state changes, what does it do? When a component state changes, what does it do? It reacts and re-renders, right? So it re-renders. Whenever a component state changes, it re-renders. So what we're seeing here is that I am changing the state to, let's say, 300. The state has now changed, right? And since the state has changed, the component has re-rendered to now show, hey, it's actually a gas. And if I change it to 0, well, the state has changed and it's caused it to re-render and be a solid. Now, the really, really cool thing is that all the logic for what happens is contained inside of that component, right? All this stuff is contained inside the water component. Everything that has to happen is inside the water component. I don't need to go somewhere else to find it. I don't need to chase down a rogue.js file. It's all here in the component. And so what we're going to see is that we have this lovely, gotta make this bigger here. We have this lovely input. And there's some weird code on here that we'll make simplified next week. But if we look at this really weird code, it has this onChange method. The input has an onChange method. And it says this.setTemperature bind this. What do you think's happening here? I know this is really confusing. I know this is weird. Oh, I just accidentally typed something. But what do you think this little bit of code here is saying? OnChange, this set temperature bind this. Ugh, this is old. I don't like this. Disrespect. What do you think it's doing? I'll tell you what it's doing. Whenever the value changes inside the input, it's an event listener, right? Whenever that event changes, so whenever that value changes, we fire the set temperature method. Let's look at the set temperature method. What does the set temperature method do? What does the set temperature method do? Hooks make this all easier. It's okay. Don't panic. Hooks make this easier. But what happens when my input changes? It fires the set temperature method, and the set temperature method does what? Yeah, it changes the state. So the state will go from 10 to whatever value is inside that input. And as soon as I set the state, as soon as I change the state, what happens? I change the state of the component, what happens? It re-renders. Did I have to like write any code for that to happen? Did I have to write any code for the re-rendering? Did I have to write like any like JavaScript that like tells the DOM what to do? Think about this. Did I have to write any JavaScript that tells the DOM to like re-render a div that has this value and to like refresh the page and all that stuff? No. React's handling all of that stuff for me. It's telling the DOM how to re-render. It's handling all of that document stuff for me, and it just says, hey, if the state changes, I got you. I got you. If it changes, I got you. I'll handle everything. I got you. Now the cool thing is, we can tell it what to do, right? So we can say, we're going to look at that internal state, right? We're going to look at that internal state, and we're going to say if that state is less than 32, it should be a solid. If the state is greater than 212, it should be a gas. If it's not a solid or a gas, it should be a liquid. And the cool thing is, as this component is rendering, we can use that to say whether or not it should be a gas, liquid, or solid. Right? So as soon as I do something here, right, I have updated the state. The cool thing is, as soon as this state changes, it's going to re-render this component. And the cool thing about the component is I can use the state inside of it. I can be like, all right, well, the state's 212, and we know state of matter is gas, right? Because it was 212 or greater. Right? So the really cool thing is that we know that we can have this internal object called state. I can update state. And whenever state updates, the component re-renders. The neat thing is I can even have some logic in here that helps me when that component does re-render. So I can say, all right, the state's 212 and state of matter is gas because we looked at the state, it was greater than 212, and that's what we plugged in when we re-rendered. So there are many ways to trigger state changing, but this is one, right? Like based on what the user is doing, based on that interactivity, I can change my state. And when my state changes, my component re-renders. I think that's pretty neat. Now, like I said, free yourself from having to understand any of this code. None of this code matters. Just understand the idea that there's state. When that state changes, we saw the component re-rendering. Does that make sense? That we changed the state, the component re-rendered? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. One last example that comes from the reading. I just refreshed it so the count wouldn't be wild. All right. When you see this, when you see all these here, what is this screaming to you? What is this screaming to you? Components. How many components are you seeing right now? Let's see if we can pop this out. We should be able to pop this out into a new window. There we go. How many components are you seeing right now? Yeah, 4, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. What's different about each of these components? What's different about each of these components? Size and what else? Size and color. Great. So without even having to look at the code, how many props do we have? We have at least 2 props that we can see just from looking at, like, if we're in that, like I said, we're in that mode. We're in the everything is a component mode. We're looking for the components. We're seeing components everywhere. We're seeing components everywhere, right? So if we're looking at it, we know that there's probably at least 4 components here with at least 2 props, like a color and a size. Cool. I'm in butter knives mode. Each of these components is keeping track of what? Yeah, some sort of time. So what do we know about each of these components as well? They all have what? Each of these components has what? Yeah, they all have state. And they have some sort of count inside that state, right? There's probably a property called count inside the state. Let's go ahead and take a look at our code. All right. Boom, we called it. There is state on this component, and it does have a count property. Cool. Let's look at us using the components. We were right. Look at these. There's 4 components here. There's 4. We're using that counter component 4 times. We're passing in a color, and we're passing in a size prop. So color and size are our props here, right? And we're passing in each of these. All right, great. So now we have color and size. All right. And we're going to have these 4 components that are rendering. And if we look, we set the state of count to be equal to 0. But I had this one component did mount. Anybody know what component did mount is? Anybody remember from the reading? Anybody know what component did mount? It's called something. It has a very specific name in React. Yeah. 220 with it's called a lifecycle method. So basically, once the component renders, right? Like once it's done rendering, this method fires. Right? And all this method is doing is setting an interval, and that interval is going to constantly change the state from whatever it was to whatever it needs to be plus 1. Right? So we're going to set an interval. Remember, an interval is going to run every second. So every second, this interval is going to run. And every second, we're going to change the count to be whatever the count was plus 1. So that means if the state is changing every second, what do we know? What do we know is happening every second? You could, Bob. What do we know is happening every second? Because every second state is changing. Yeah, we're getting a re-rendering. Every second we're getting a re-rendering. Right? But this would be really painful. Right? If our old school ways were with us, what would we have to do every second? What would we have to do every single second? If we didn't have React, we're using our old school ways, what would we be doing every second? We'd be reloading that page. We'd be refreshing. Refreshing is expensive. Imagine having to reload the DOM every single time you wanted this change to take effect. Imagine having to reload images and text and pulling stuff from outside sources. Every single time you just want to change one number, you had to reload or pull stuff from somewhere else. No, thank you. Exactly. No, thank you. Let me show you something really cool. Inside the Chrome developer tools, I'm going to go to inspect here. There is this, you can go to more tools. So I clicked the 3, like the vertical ellipses, and I clicked on more tools. I'm going to go over here to rendering. Look at all this stuff. I'm going to show you this again. There's like, you think that this is all the developer tools has? Nah. Think again. Look at these 3 dots. Boom. More tools. Look at all these other tools here. That's why I say, like, why I use Chrome for development is there's so many tools, right? Go to rendering. And then inside of rendering, I have this option here called paint flashing. There's so many other things in here, but I'm going to turn on paint flashing. All right, now let's come back. All right. Now, what you're seeing here is just the elements of the DOM that are re-rendering, right? As the DOM updates, the pieces that update are flashing green. So notice what's happening here. This doesn't change, is never flashing green. Only the things that changed are being re-rendered. This is the beauty of React. If we had a very expensive, like heavy site like Facebook, where we had all these things that we don't want to have to constantly refresh or re-render, React comes in handy. And something that it has over anything else, right? There are so many other ways to do this one thing, but the thing that React has that really helps set it apart is something called the virtual DOM. What React is keeping track of is like its own version of the DOM. And when there's something that needs to change, it says, what is the smallest, like what only the things that change then make their way back to the real DOM. So you're not constantly having to throw out the whole DOM and rebuild it, right? You're just grabbing the pieces that matter and patching and updating those diffs, like the things that are different, right? And so that's where the virtual DOM comes into play. We're going to go deeper into that next week. But the real thing here is that this saves us a lot of time. Yes, Softus, they did. Cool. So tonight we saw components. Components make our lives easier because it makes our code more maintainable, more reusable, and we don't have to hunt stuff down, keep it all together. We saw that components can have properties that get passed in, right? So that our components can have slight differences that we need, right? I want this one to be a little bit bigger than this one. I want this one to be steel blue as opposed to light blue, right? It's still the same component, but I just want to pass in slight differences, right? Then we also know that our components have state. And whenever that state changes, our component re-renders. And due to the virtual DOM, we're not throwing out the whole DOM. We're only re-rendering the bits that matter. What do y'all think? Does that help kind of explain like what React is, why that matters? Cool.
Bruh.
All right, a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot here. There's so many little things that we're going to get into next week. But tonight, I wanted it to be about just kind of understanding the basics, seeing it in front of our eyes, right? And we'll have plenty of time to write good React code in the coming weeks. But for now, it's about understanding what components are. I want you all to start seeing components everywhere, right? I want you all to start seeing components in different places. Lawn ball, next week I will. I don't want to dive deep into the nitty gritty right now. I want to keep it at this very high level, just so it has a sweet understanding of what we're trying to get into. All right. Now we got through that. We still have about 35 minutes left. All right. So about 35 minutes left of our normal class time. And I would love for you to take those 25 minutes or so and do something in the mental health action day, right? So it's a day of action, whether it's for your own mental health or supporting somebody else that you think you could support in their mental health journey. That's what I would like for you to do in these 25 minutes. The really cool thing is that this mental health action day has like a list of things that you could try. I'm going to put it here in chat. You could find a therapist, reach out to a friend, start a meditation practice, join a peer support group, check in with yourself, research resources, schedule your first yoga class, take action to expand access, and join a support program. Today, I found a new psychiatrist. That was the action I took. I wanted a new local psychiatrist that I didn't have to meet with virtually. So that's the action I took. One other thing that I had a lot of folks ask about And that I know some folks decided to do today was replace some of their ableist language with something that's just way cooler, right? So here's a list of words that you could use instead of kind of doing, and some somewhat trigger warning here because there's some words here, words that we kind of just let slip into our lexicon that might actually have a profound impact on somebody that's suffering from some sort of ailment, or somebody that does have something that they would label offensive to their everyday life and their existence as somebody that has some of these kind of issues. And so I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I would hope that folks would be more wonderful humans to each other and realize that often your language has impact. And there are things that even my friends have thrown out that when I'm in a manic episode impact me and make me feel that myself is inferior or that there's something wrong with me. And so I do know that some of my friends have taken it upon themselves to remove certain words from their speech. And it's something that I try really, really hard to do, is to remove a lot of these things that I think were just very natural for me, especially growing up, so that I am having a better impact on the world and not hurting the folks that I love. So maybe that could be a step that you take. I don't know. I'll put this in our Discord channel, but I would love for us to stop stream, do some positive affirmations, or take any step that you think is appropriate in the Mental Health Action Day. Cool. Hope you all had some fun just skimming the surface off of React. You have a lovely bit of reading to do over the weekend. Stream and blog team are meeting tomorrow, and we're going to do a back-end review on Sunday. Thank you, Leon. You helped me learn React today. Good to hear. It was wonderful seeing all of y'all today. Thank you for coming, hanging out, getting into some React. Excited for y'all to have a good weekend, and I'll see you, hopefully some of you tomorrow. If not, all the rest of you on Sunday. We're not going to do a raid because I want you to take some action. It's Mental Health Action Day, so do something that you think is appropriate for you. And I'll see you all soon. Peace.